in this video, we will solve radical equations. So let's start with a simple radical equation here. So suppose you want to solve 2x plus 3 is equal to 4. Suppose you wanted to solve that radical equation. So remember, whenever you're trying to solve a radical equation, the first thing you want to do is isolate the radical. So in this case, you don't really have to do that because the radical is isolated. Here, it's by itself. So now the second step is now you need to get rid of the radical. So that once you get rid of that radical, you have a nicer equation to solve, because right now, because of that radical, you can't do a whole lot here. And so the goal is to now get rid of that radical. In this case, it's a square root, right? So to get rid of the square root, you want to square both sides. Remember, why both sides? Because if you do something to one side of the equation, you have to do that to the other side of the equation to balance it, right? And so here we want to square both sides of this equation. And so you square that part here, and then you square the 4. And so in this case, that square root and the square cancels out. So they cancel each other out. You're left with 2x plus 3 is equal to 4 squared, which is 16. Okay, and then the next step here, now that's a nicer linear equation, right? Simple linear equation, two-step linear equation to solve. And so whenever you're trying to solve for an equation, remember you want to undo the operations here. So you want to you have plus 3, so you want to subtract 3 on both sides. And so you get 2x is equal to 13. And then the next step, right, you have 2 times x is equal to 13. And so now you want to get rid of that 2 because you want to isolate the x. And so you want to divide by 2 on both sides. So x is equal to 13 over 2. And so that's going to be your solution there. But now, you know, the thing is that once you get your answer, you always want to go back and plug it into the original equation to check if that's the right answer. Okay? And so sometimes what happens when you're dealing with radical equation is that you could have extraneous solution. So what does extraneous solution mean? You get it as an answer for your variable, but when you go back and plug it into your original equation, it's not going to satisfy that original equation. So when you have that, we call that solution a extraneous solution. So you don't really include that solution in your solution set. And so you gotta be careful there and check your solutions in the end whenever you're solving radical equations. Okay? So let's go ahead and do that. Bring out the original equation. So you have 2x plus 3 is equal to 4. So now we found x was 13 divided by 2. So let's go ahead and plug that in where we see x in this equation. So 2 times 13 over 2 plus 3. Now, is that equal to 4? You want to check that. And so 2 times 13 over 2. Remember here, this is multiplication. You have a 2 on the top, 2 on the bottom. And so those cancels out. And then you're left with 13 plus 3. Now, is that equal to 4? What is 13 plus 3? 13 plus 3 is 16. So square root of 16, is that equal to 4? Yeah, that's right. Square root of 16 is 4. So 4 is definitely equal to 4. So that checks in. And so we can for sure say that our solution for this radical equation is 13 over 2 in the solution set. Okay, and that's how you solve radical equation.